welcome to this week's episode. I'm so excited for you to hear my guests this week. They are longtime friends of mine, which is really crazy to say because they were students in our youth ministry like 11 years ago. So I've known them for a long time, and she is actually also my esthetician, and she absolutely kills at Boho Med Spa. Go check it out. But we're not here to talk about skin today. We're actually here to talk about marital infidelity, how it happens, why it happens, what it does to both people, how to repair trust, how to rebuild brokenness within two people in a relationship of two people that really love each other but lost their way. And they're going to get super real with you. And so I know you're going to love them just as much as I do. So enjoy this episode on marital infidelity, sexual betrayal, restoration, and all the good things that God does in seasons of brokenness. Enjoy my people, Trey and Holly Tanella.
Let's get into all
Let's do it.
this
Let's
dirt.
get into it. Okay.
There's gonna be so much cheese.
There is so much tea about to be spilled, y'all. And I'm here with some of the best people in the whole world. And you're going to love them as much as I love them because they are the epitome of backstage people.
It's so true.
They will spill it all. You may have seen Holly on my Instagram stories because she's my esthetician, but we go way, way farther back.
Yeah, you were my youth pastor.
I was your youth pastor. Yeah. And so now even though she's constantly mad at me because of the sun care that I don't do, well, you get on to me about it.
You don't do the tanning beds anymore, so we're good. That's all I care about.
Okay.
Don't tan in the tanning beds.
But I also am working on sunscreen.
Okay, that's good.
Your zinc spray.
Yay! Hey, baby steps.
Baby steps.
We finally
Holly's
said no to
best.
tanning beds, and now we're working you into sunscreen.
Holly's the best because she doesn't just expect you to be a 100 when you go in for skincare.
Yes.
She takes you, if you're like a level 1, she'll take you to a 2.
You've came so far.
I've come so far. Oh man! But as annoying as my brown spots on my face have been, what are those called that you removed? Something?
Melasma. That's what you struggle with.
Oh man, that's my
like
pregnancy.
Hormonal pregnancy pigmentation.
And so even though back in years ago, I would still go to the tanning beds and come back to her, she still saw me as a true woman of God.
I was faithful that she would come around.
You prayed for me.
Yes.
Oh my goodness.
You probably fasted for me. She'd text me, stay out of the sun. She'd see if I was in Hawaii and be like, you better not be.
You better wear your sunscreen.
We would have minutes at home where we would just speak in tongues over this whole thing.
You guys see me on a beach, you're like, oh, God, save her soul.
God, save her skin.
Save her skin and her soul. Holly's like just done so much for me, but we're not going to talk about skin today, although it may play a part in the story, but we're going to go way back because I've known Trey and Holly, husband and wife, here with me for how many years? Wow. It's got to be 10.
I was going to the harvest.
It's
when
longer
Dustin,
than that. We're about to come on our 10-year
We're going to come on a
anniversary.
10-year. I brought her when I was dating her.
I remember.
To the church.
No, I brought you.
Ashley
Bell, you know Ashley Bell,
course.
invited me to church.
Yeah,
were
and
you
then
guys
I was already
dating
going.
We were.
Okay, nice.
We kind of, you're like,
so,
my friend invited me. I'm like, I'm going too.
Yeah, you didn't take me to church. I took you to church. You needed Jesus.
Oh my God, don't we all at 19? Mm-hmm. Oh Lord.
Yes.
Okay, so you guys, back up. Because when you came to the church, then you knew each other. So how did you meet originally?
So this is how it went down.
Okay, tell me.
Okay.
Tell me.
It's my last year in college, and so I took the really hard classes, aka biology and chemistry.
Oh, yeah.
Okay?
Yeah, that's big. Yep.
Yeah. So I walk into biology class, and it's like stadium seating.
Okay.
The only stadium seating, I think, classroom in Collin College. And I walk in late because that's how us Tanellas do it.
Oh, sure,
right?
yeah.
Italians, we don't do anything early. So walk in late, bust in these two doors, and everyone like stops and turns at me, and I'm like, perfect. And I go walk up at the very back top, and I sit down, and I look forward, and I'm like, all right, I don't really care, like, what's the subject matter? What are we talking about? I'm like, okay, where are the hot girls at? Okay.
That's so awesome.
And I see this.
How old are you? What, 20?
No, I think you're
19
like
or 20.
Okay, you're a kid. You're a baby.
I am 19.
You're a baby boy.
Yeah,
okay, you're a baby boy.
Yeah, I'm
okay.
19.
Yeah, so you're just looking for girls.
Yeah. God.
Yeah.
So I'm like, see this blonde right in the middle, and I'm just a sucker for blondes. I see Holly, just right there, beautiful girl, and I'm like, wow. I'm like, this is gonna be a great semester. Finally, a hot chick in class. Then I go to chemistry class.
The 19-year-old brain. This is just a complete picture of it.
Yep. Yep. This was Trey 11 years ago.
I can't wait for people to find out who you are now because this is already great. This is the most shallow.
I'm there for one purpose, right?
To score a hot blonde.
I know.
Which I remember Holly back then.
Yes, holy cow. Man, oh man. And she's only getting better. So so then I go to chemistry class, and this is where it got tough because when I went to chemistry class, there was this other hot blonde that sat behind me. And I was just like, I literally text my friend. I was like, bro, I got this hot blonde in biology class, hot blonde in chemistry class. God is good. Of course you got to put it on God, right?
Of course it has to be the Lord. Because you were homeschooled, right?
Yes, I was homeschooled.
Yeah, you were homeschooled. So this is like your entrance. Yes. This is your debutante ball.
Yes.
He's finally been let out of those stables, and he's about to make his mark.
Not only let out of the stables, Jamie, I wasn't even allowed to hang out with girls.
Oh, sure, yeah.
Until I was 15 years old, and I begged my dad to just go out into a group with my bro friends.
Yep.
And there were girls
might be a girl
coming
this is very
to the
common
mall.
In the 90s. Yep.
And I'm like, please, Dad, let me go. At 15 years old, I had to have that conversation. Okay. So, anyways, just put things in perspective. Then, a week goes by. I'm in biology class. And, stadium seating, right?
Sure.
Everybody's walking by, and their desk is like up to my desk because I'm like the desk right behind Holly. That's the whole like platform, right? And my desk, everyone's like walking by, and like the desk is like up to their shoulder. Holly walks by, and the desk is like up to her hips.
Oh.
And I'm not even trying to pay attention, and I'm like just shoving books in my bag, and there was like a sign from God. Oh, this girl has long legs. And Trey is a sucker for long legs. So I'm like, God, this is a sign. You want me to go talk to her. So literally, I'm sitting there waiting. She's talking to the teacher. We're walking out. She's walking out right behind me. So I'm like, just turn around, say hi. Just turn around, say hi. You can do this. You can do this. You can do this. Homeschooler, freaking out inside my mind, right? Inside out, it's going, no, don't do it. Like that little people inside your head, right? So I turn around and I'm like, and I put out my hand, and then Holly goes, hi, I'm Holly. Oh. And I'm like, oh my gosh, you're so beautiful.
Did your voice do that? I'm guessing it did.
Yeah. He was cute. What's funny is when the moment he walked into class in biology, I see him and I was like, oh my gosh, he's so hot. And I've never felt like that with a guy. I'm like, I have to figure out how to meet him. I was like,
that was new for you.
That was new for me as well.
Yeah.
So
even though you guys were coming from the most hysterical, shallow places of looks.
Yes, totally.
God was still in the midst of it.
He was still helping us out.
And then what makes God even better is I asked her what class you're in. She's like,
no, wait, you asked me to hula hoop.
I did ask her to hula hoop.
They were having like a get to know your fellow students.
I can so see you
and they were like,
hey,
we're having a hula hoop contest. And he's like, hey, do you want to hula hoop with me? I was like, yeah. We were the last two. And then he makes me laugh and I drop my hula hoop.
Oh, I'm just really good at swinging my hips.
But since then, I have re-challenged you and I've won every time.
Oh, that is true. That is true. I've lost my skill sets. But anyways, I asked her, what other class you're in? And she's like, I sit behind you in chemistry class. And I'm like,
wait, she was the other blonde?
She was the other blonde.
Because
I know, and I was like, that was you the whole time. God was like, hey, Trey, you're an idiot. I'm going to put your future wife in your biology class and your chemistry class. You can't miss her.
And you're going to think they're two different people.
Yeah. Because in biology, chemistry.
Stop.
I sat behind him and he would be a creep and with his laptop and it would go all black and he would look at me like reflection.
No, he wouldn't.
In the back. And so he saw me from the front.
This is his debutante.
Yeah.
He doesn't know how to. He doesn't know how to turn around and look. He's kind of like turn his reverse camera on.
Okay. And then when we sit down, the first girl I ever asked for their number was her. That's the start of a great relationship as it is today.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
But we were both, finding each other.
Oh, sure.
Right? And
your babies.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And 2 years later, I get Holly pregnant, and then I was gonna marry her anyways. I just didn't know when, and I was like, told her parents, told my parents, like, we want to get married anyways. So like, okay, let's just do it in like 3 months. We like fast tracked a wedding, whatever, right? So now we're married together. Holly's pregnant. We have a kid.
Oh man,
right?
that's a lot.
The hardest times, and like, but also really cool because like literally we're fresh and we grew together and so many things.
Yeah.
Like, but obviously we're here for a reason. Not so many things worked out.
Sure.
But then in the end, it always does, right?
Yeah.
So I think that during our married times, I think that ultimately what it came down to, a lot of things was Holly would ask like, hey, like, what's going on? Are you okay? Are you? And I'm like
emotionally?
Yeah. And this is where like she was finding out that like I was looking at like porn and stuff like that because I was going to chiropractic school. I was stressed out. Like I didn't really at that time, like, I don't know, there's just a lot of things going on. And then so like then porn started coming out. Like, oh my gosh, you're looking at porn in our marriage now. And it's like, how does that make me feel? And then and I'm like, I it's like,
how did you discover that? Or how did you know?
I think I told you.
I think he ended up telling me.
Yeah.
He doesn't really like to keep things from me, which is so interesting. That why we're here today. We'll get into it later. But he ends up telling me. And I forgot my train of thought. It'll come to me in a second.
But ultimately, what it came out of that
was... hold on. So when he was going through chiropractic school, super stressed. I love sex, and all the time I'm like, babe, like I miss you. I don't get to see you. Like I want to have sex, and he's like, no, I'm stressed. I want to go back to sleep. And so then finding out that he's looking at porn was so hard on me. And I was also pregnant with our second, and so being pregnant, husband not wanting you, he's feeling stressed. I'm like, babe, what's going on? Like I don't understand. And so that's
like real life right
there.
That
was so heartbreaking for me of like being rejected. And then also like when you're pregnant and you're getting big, like you don't really, you feel beautiful, but you don't feel sexy. No. And you're like, oh, this is cool, but whoa, I'm really big. Yeah. And you have all these stretch marks all over the place. But
you were feeling like desire for him. You wanted him.
Yes, I've always wanted Trey.
Emotionally and physically, it sounds like.
So you're very compatible together.
Yeah, so you're digging into him being like, so did you feel distance or did you feel like walls were up with him? Or this is early on, so we're not even getting to like down the road, but like starting out.
This is in like, I want to say second year of marriage, third.
Probably second year.
The second year of marriage.
So he tells you
Trey would always go deep with me, but not deeper. Okay. I'm like an interrogator. Like I want to know every part of you. Yeah. Like every part of your soul. Yeah. And so I would always feel like I had hit a wall. And I'm like, babe, like not just with like the porn stuff, just like in everyday like life type of deal.
I couldn't share any vulnerabilities. I couldn't, I mean, whenever I think vulnerability and deep relationships almost nearly go hand in hand. So
for sure.
Yeah. So
did you know she was trying to get it out of you?
Yeah, because I would always tell him like, babe, like take off your. I feel like you're wearing a mask, and like I'm just waiting for you to take off your mask, and I'm still gonna love you. Yeah. So just take off your mask. But the thing is, like,
I would always tell him like, I don't know I'm wearing a mask. You don't know. It's not like, oh, there it is. Let me. Bing.
Yeah, it's not conscious.
No.
But looking back, were you?
Oh my gosh, yes.
Yeah. So what did that look? How did that play out in your everyday life? Wearing a mask. Holly might even be able to answer that too.
I think. Okay, so I specifically remember like Holly asking me like questions and something that had like any kind of vulnerability to it. I literally felt this like. I view it as like a box, like my little treasure box or something. Like this treasure box of vulnerabilities would just snap shut. Yeah. Like, nope, you are not seeing this part of me. And
so did that play out in like sarcasm, humor, anger, shallowness? Like what is like, because it all plays out in us in different ways. Because I'm kind of similar to you, Trey, in that I have a hard time sometimes with like intimacy and vulnerability. And Dustin's very much like you, Holly, which is like, talk to me.
Yeah.
Let me in. Let me see who you really are. And I want him in. I just don't know what to do. And so mine plays out, I think, sometimes in just not talking.
I would say that's the same for you, or like humor.
Yeah.
Like going back to
like make light of everything.
Yeah. And so it's like, no, I don't want that. Like, don't give me that. I know that you're running from me. Like, let's go deeper. And I think for you, the reason why you were so much didn't want to share is the perfectionism of like growing up in your household. With your mom and your dad as well played a role in it. But more so your mom, of like, if you were not perfect, you were not loved.
Yeah. So true.
And that played a huge, and it still does today, of having to overcome that.
Yeah.
In our marriage and living life of like, hey, it's okay not to be perfect. Like, I'm still going to love you.
Yeah.
So when you guys got married, you're just a kid, Trey. Like, you're just a kid who came out of a household where you really felt like you had to be perfect.
Everything was
just put everything? Okay, yeah. So, because you were great at it.
I was the master of it. I was like,
best.
What do you want me to be?
Because I remember you at this age.
What do you want me to be?
Albeit.
Okay, I can be that.
Yep.
I was like the perfect.
Yeah,
chameleon.
you walk in a room and you light it up and you'll do all the jokes and all the charisma, which is also, we always talk about this on here, but like our greatest giftings are also have like a dark side, right?
Yes.
So that part of your personality is incredible, but like hearing the story in hindsight now, I'm like, oh man, like you were trained or you learned to be really good at masking.
Yes.
So what was going on deep inside of you during these first early years? Like, why couldn't you express? Why couldn't you connect?
That's a good question. I think there was just a fear. I just had fear. And I deal with this today even. Not to the severity back then, but I always felt like I wasn't good enough and I wasn't smart enough. Because I was homeschooled. Everyone's like, you're a dumb homeschooler. And then I guess as a child, I just was never good enough. So I just I think anytime I felt that fear coming up, it was just kind of like, or
turn it on.
Or let's go do something else. Or
it
was like avoid.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
And I can't give you any specifics, but that's like
that's really telling. That's really, really helpful. And you spotted it.
Yeah, I think another thing with that is that he was never angry. He would never cry with me. He would never be sad. He was always happy. I'm like, this isn't normal. Like, aren't you mad right now? Like, why are you not mad? And he just didn't want to show it because that's not perfect. Perfect person's always happy.
Man, that's so real.
Yeah.
You agree?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I remember you being like the most, and again, it's a gifting. And part of it is your gifting. Like, you really are a charismatic person and a leader and all of it. But like when it's used as a costume, your insides start to like cave in.
It weighs on you.
Mm-hmm. Tell me what.
So I think like that is kind of all what led up to like, and then the porn fed into it, right? And that is kind of where there was the breaking point where I started to get a mentor and I wanted to be like, I want to break this porn addiction.
Yeah.
Ever since I was 13 years old, I'm like, Lord God, please take this from me.
Yeah.
Do it again. Lord God, please, 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 please. I don't want to do this anymore.
Yep.
Do it again. And, so I'm like, I've done that cycle over, a whole decade.
Yeah.
Right. And I'm like, how do you overcome this? And he had a really good story of, porn, cheat on his wife. And he's like, I'm here just to help people get out of like their porn addictions. And so I started seeing him. His name's Mauricio Lastra. And
Holly knew about this and was...
And we had sat down for dinner with them, and so we heard his story.
Okay, that's awesome. Yeah,
it's another husband and wife that mentors couples.
Awesome. Okay,
with like, the man having like porn addiction and then like affairs and just how to get over it. So
so he was a kind of like a family friend in a way. So I started sitting down with him, and he started working with me and trying to get into like the root issues and stuff like that. But I remember specifically, probably a year into it, and he had told me, like, he asked me a question, like, where's this all going in a way? And I'm like, I know I'm dealing with this. I'm like, but it's not going to be like, how bad is this really though? Because I'm like, I'm not going to cheat on my wife. Like, I could never cheat on my wife. That's just not me.
Right.
Inside, I'm a homeschooler that can't even ask her girl for a number.
Right.
Right. I'm like, there's no way. And he's just like, Trey, he's like, where you're going, you're going to cheat on your wife. Because this is exactly the path that I was going down too. And I'm like, no way. There's no way. There's no way. So going into that then, I think like we were kind of like on and off from there, and kind of like he helped me a lot, but then, just like relapses here and there every 3 months or 6 months. It's like, oh, dang, I did it again, right?
I mean, there's all the guilt and all the shame.
Yeah.
And none of the things that actually help us.
Yes.
Right.
Because you feel all the things that are going to just make it worse.
Mm-hmm.
But, oh, yeah, okay. So months go on.
And then ultimately it was really kind of weird how this snuck in.
Yeah.
I thought cheating was like go to a bar, you see this chick, you go buy her a drink, then you're like, you want to come home with me.
Totally.
Like I thought that's what like you had to like pursue them.
Right.
Right. We meet this other couple that says their kids are the same age as us at Chick-fil-A. And we're like, what do you guys do? What do you guys?
Yeah,
Where do you go to church?
Yeah.
You know? Oh, you should come with us to church.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Yeah. I remember you guys brought them.
Yeah.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And then it was like, well, he works. And then I'm like, well, Holly works. I was like, why don't we just like, we can go to the park, right?
And at the time, so backtrack,
Yeah.
you stopped chiropractic school.
That's true. Mm-hmm.
So just so people know where we're at.
Gotcha.
You stopped chiropractic school. I decided, okay, since you don't want to do chiropractic anymore, then I'm going to go pursue what I want to do, which is to be an esthetician.
Yep.
So then I end up being the breadwinner in our family.
Sure. Yep.
And then he ends up being a stay-at-home dad, which was really hard for him at the time because he always thought his whole life he's going to be this doctor.
Yeah.
And
making millions of dollars.
So it's just playing into all the insecurities from when you were young.
Yes.
Because Holly is like this BA, like professional out there, like running her own,
and people
thing.
love her because she's like doing such great work. And so it's like, I was supposed to be that. I was supposed to be the doctor. Everyone's like, you're fixing everything. You're so amazing. Right.
Yep. Yeah.
And God was just like,
geez.
oh,
Yeah,
your
this is
ego. Right.
Yeah. He's going to, oh man.
Yeah.
It's a perfect storm.
Yeah.
Yes, it was.
It was so bad. Even like people were like, oh, what do you do? And I'm like, I would come up with something else besides I'm a stay-at-home dad.
But he's an amazing stay-at-home dad. This man is an incredible father. He plays with them like no other. He's not that I'm a bad mom, but he is an incredible dad.
He is
so much
he
better.
is the king of that. Yeah.
I feel like I'm just a child at heart. So I'm like,
yeah.
You want to roll around, play monkeys? Let's go.
Yeah, so cute.
Holly's like, come here, let me hydrofacial you, babes. Okay, so this is an interesting part, though, that I think a lot of people relate with when it comes down to leading up to the affair, professional lives and personal lives and how they conflict.
Yes.
And so Holly is pursuing her dreams, and you're at home, and you love your kids, but you have an ego that's still raging.
Yeah.
Correct me if I'm wrong.
Yes. I would say it's still raging, but like subconsciously raging.
Totally. Yeah.
Like I wasn't like.
You were
like,
so proud of her, I'm
like,
sure. You're so proud of her.
Yeah. I'm like, yes, I'm here to support you.
Totally.
And then
you're not a psychopath. Yeah. You're it's all working
deep
well.
in my soul, it's like.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So you start to build your business.
I think I already had
You had it for 2 years, I think.
Yeah.
Right?
Okay.
So I had it for 2, and I was already very successful. I was gone all the time.
Yep.
And when I wasn't at work, I was at home working. And so this also sets up for I wasn't taking care of my family like I should have. I thought I was taking care of them in a way that I'm going to provide for them, but really they need my time and they need me.
Would you agree with that, Trey?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. It wasn't attention, but like that's how her dad like showed love, right?
Providing.
He was like, don't talk to me. Like, I'm not going to give you any emotions, but I'll take out the trash. I'll work. I'll pay for your stuff. I'll repair your car. Right. Yeah. That's how he shows his love. And so that's how kind of Holly got into that mode as well.
Yeah.
I mean, I would talk to you guys, but
yes.
My attention wasn't fully on that because I was like, oh, Trey has the kids. Like, I can finish up working on this to try to be the best, better, provide more. So that's where I was at. And again, it was the perfect setup because when we met this couple and that there were so many, I felt so bad for him because all the time he's like, I want to like go hang out with other people, but there's never like dad groups. Like, you know, with kids, it's all moms groups. And it would be like moms or whatever. And he showed up to a couple and they're like, this is weird. And he's like,
it's a mom group?
It's the moms only. And I'm like, okay. All right, guys, let's go to the other side of the park.
Sad. I'm like,
that's
so
hard,
there needs to be some dad groups out there.
Yeah, there does need to be some dad groups.
But it is just kind of like the thing, like here at the church, it's the Mother's Day Out program, right? It's like it's just what moms do. But now in the 21st century, I think there's a lot more dads.
I know so many stay-at-home dads, and so many women who have a passion and a fire for that.
Yeah.
And I think it's great as long as the couples like agree and it's healthy.
Yes.
But what I'm hearing you guys saying is like there were some things going deep down that weren't healthy, and what now you're still doing, which now is great, but there were like things at play.
Mm-hmm.
So this couple comes into your life, and then what happens?
So they end up, she's a stay-at-home mom, and he's like, oh, well, let's go to the park and let's go play. And at that time, we have an awesome marriage.
Yeah, we do.
Yeah. You guys have always been so. I still remember you dancing at Truett and Brittany's wedding.
Yeah.
I think you might have even been pregnant with Roman at the time.
Probably.
But you were in that little, I will never forget Holly. Oh my, I'll have to find a picture. I have a picture of it somewhere. 20s gear.
Yeah.
And she is like, oh my gosh. Like
I had that photo on my screen for a long time.
Did you? I bet you did.
I'm like, dude, gorgeous.
But the two of you, like the impression was like, and this is what I'm always trying to get to in this podcast is like, the impression people see is not always what's happening.
Totally.
And so you guys are on this dance floor and you're like, do you still dance together?
Oh
I bet you do.
We love to dance.
You're like so like in sync and you're spinning and you're twirling and Holly's shimmying and all of it. And then Trey is shimmying and Holly's motorboating Trey.
It was a great wedding. Okay.
Great wedding. But I still remember like, and this goes back to what you guys were saying about like, we really were happy people. We love each other. We had a great marriage. And this is the whole point of like, but good things can go sour when we don't attend to what we need to. Mm-hmm. So all that to say, this couple, mom-dad date started.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I think the first indication
yes.
of like,
tell me,
this is not okay.
Yep.
Is I was laying in bed and I had set up probably like our third or fourth, like let's go to the park type thing. And this is not like we're going to the park every day.
Right.
Right. So I'm like, okay, we'll go to the park tomorrow. And I'm laying in bed and I'm like, and I have this like little thing in my heart that's like, I can't wait to go to the park with her. Yeah. And I was like, and then I actually had this thought. It's kind of funny. Maybe I put Dustin on a pedestal too high, but I was like, Dustin probably wouldn't do this. Right. And I'm not like Jesus wouldn't do this. I put Dustin in. Dustin probably wouldn't do this, but Dustin's relatable, right?
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
So I'm like, Dustin probably wouldn't do this. And then I shake it off and I'm like, you're
going
to a
date.
park.
It's a park date. Kids
You're going to a park. Their kids are getting together. My kids love their kids.
This is really, really good. I'm so grateful for these pointers, like these like flares all along the way. When you all of a sudden are like, oh, I can't wait to. Yeah.
And I think like the Holy Spirit, like, that whisper in the wind or whatever you want to call it. It's like that whisper. And it's just like a little conscious. And you're like, oh, do you feel that? Like, do you feel that you're more excited to be with her than your wife? Like, and then it's like, and I think your mind is so powerful at rationalizing anything.
We deceive ourselves more than anyone else.
And so that's where that was the pinnacle point that I was like, this is starting to go downhill.
Yeah.
So
can I ask?
Yes.
I feel like I know because it's common and it's not, strange, but can you verbalize why you didn't stop it at that point?
Yeah, because it was exciting.
Yeah.
And it was like,
it was a thrill.
It was fun. Like,
yeah.
Like I enjoyed it. And like, why would I stop that? Right.
Yeah.
So.
And there's nothing going on physically or emotionally at this point. It's just, but there was warning signs.
Yeah, exactly.
Did you, Holly, pick up on any of that?
No.
Yeah.
I didn't. I like
because you loved her.
So it evolved to like I loved her like a sister.
Yeah.
Like I did a lot for her.
Yeah.
And we did a lot together. So we went to Vegas together and like we paid for their trip and like we had so much fun together. And
you brought her into your home, right?
We ended up going on a month later. We decided like, hey, would you guys, we got offered like a free Vegas trip or something like that. And so we were like, oh, yeah, let's go, whatever. So we go and we're like, hey, like flights are so inexpensive. Well, like it was only like $200 for both of them to come. I'm like, we'll pay for your flights. Like come with us. And the hotel's like already paid for or whatever. And they're like, oh, okay. So we come, we have a great time. And then we get back and she's like, well, her husband was weird. He kept like leaving and was like being really weird. I was like, come like have have fun with us. I'm like, why are you leaving? It was weird. And then turns out like we get back and he's like, she goes, yeah, so we're gonna probably get a divorce. I was like, really? I was like, oh man, she's like, I'm so sorry. Is there anything I can do? She's like, well, I'd like to get out of the house. Like, can I come live with you guys for a little bit until like we get, you know, a better, like our own place or whatever. And I was like, yeah, like anything. Like I'm very giving, very like, I'll help you kind of thing. So she comes in.
You'll do anything for anyone.
Yeah. And so, especially for people I love. So I was like, absolutely, like come, like live with us.
Okay, can you let me like really deep into the mind of some, because I adore you. Right? I love you. You are the best guy. Like you love Holly. Like y'all are like you are the perfect picture of like people who love each other who've been through hell and back, right?
Yeah.
What is good? And I'm not asking this like judgmentally. I'm asking it just for like the raw, like what is going on in your mind about Holly, the kids, the life you've built here, and what feels like you cannot stop over here?
That's a great question, because I think a lot of women would look at it as like, there's fire right there. Why would you jump into the fire?
We would,
right?
Yeah.
And my mom has said this before when she found out that I was looking at porn at, you know, a young age. And she's like, it's a fire. And I'm like, it doesn't work like that.
Yeah. Okay.
So in my, I think what really happens is I'm very much like I love biology, right? So I'm like, I look at the brain. Okay. We have our prefrontal cortex that makes all of our executive decisions. Right. And so
the smart part of us.
Is that a smart part, right? We're like, yes, it's our drive.
Yes.
Like, let's go. And then there's the lower part of the brain that kind of, that is more or less just looking at pretty much just all 3 F's, right? It's looking at making sure we feed to survive, making sure that like we run from fear. Okay. And then making sure we reproduce.
F.
Yeah. Which is the other F,
Okay,
right?
Yeah. Okay.
So it's like, and so at that point, I feel like.
So it's fear, feed yourself, run from fear, and then make sure you're sexually like.
Yeah. So that you carry on your genes.
Okay.
Okay.
Yep. Total biological.
Yes.
Okay.
And so I feel like at that point, and there is such a energy that comes out of your prefrontal cortex and goes and just fills that third F in that brain. And it's just like you don't think about your kids.
Yeah.
You don't think about your wife.
Yep.
You don't think about anything but that moment. Like running from a tiger, you're not thinking about, well, how are my kids doing? How am I doing?
That's a really
right.
That's a really good example.
No, get away from this tiger,
and in your sense, get to that tiger.
Get into that tiger.
Into that tiger. No, that's so true. Like that's a really good description of it. Because when it's fear-based, you're running and you're not thinking about anything else. But when it's sex-fueled, or that part of the brain that is, you're not really thinking. It had. Okay, I'm getting way ahead of ourselves because I want to ask Holly about some of the things I'm thinking later. But okay, so that's what you were thinking about is just like feed the animal.
I felt that coming on.
Yeah.
And so I was like, you need to leave. And then it was just like
too much.
I had no more willpower.
Yep.
So
question. Did you, after like the first time you cheated, what were the feelings then?
I didn't even like it the first time.
Okay.
I was just like,
it wasn't what you thought it would be.
I don't want this. Like, this is not me.
So that response in your brain slowed, and then you started re-engaging like the part of you that was.
And it was like, well, you've already done it once.
Okay, yeah.
And then she's like, hey, well, we'll meet up here.
Yeah.
Well, I've already done it 3 times. I've already done it 10 times.
Yep.
What's one more time?
And so, Holly, you didn't know any of this was happening at all? Yeah.
No, it carried on for like 2 months.
Yeah, and you love this girl like a sister and cared for her, and we're going to give her a spot in your practice and all of it. Did you sense in him something as different?
That's the thing, is I didn't.
You didn't.
And so when I finally found out, I was like, wait, what? And we'll talk into that later, but
Can you tell me like the feelings of like finding out?
That was really hard because I found out because we were going to, her and I, we got in her truck. And this was like a couple days before Trey's birthday in March. And I saw like, we get in her truck to go shopping. And I turn and I was like, what is this paper? And it said like, happy birthday, Trey. And like, I pull it up and I like read it. And it talks about, I can't remember the exact words, but it talks about like, I love you and you've shown me what love is now. And like, and I didn't think I could love again, like before, like now I know what true love is. And I was like, maybe this is like a sister love. But I was like, this is still like, I was like, this isn't good. And I just feel in my, like, I'm just freaking out inside. And I'm like, this can't be. And so I just know like, whenever I'm scared, like I run to Jesus. Yeah. Like, and like I always have. Yeah. Ever since little girl. So I'm like, I know I can't talk to anyone right now. I just need to be alone. So I just go and I run to the backyard and I get on my knees and I'm just praying and crying out to God. I'm like, God, please don't be what I think this is. Like, I just can't handle it. And then I started thinking, like, we can figure something out. Like, obviously,
you're already going to solution. I can handle this. Yes. I can. So, Trey, where are you at in this conversation? What is going through your brain? Are you trying to like hide and protect?
Self-preservation.
Self-preservation. Yeah. Yep. Okay. So you'll just say 100%. The bare minimum.
Yep.
And then, okay. So.
And then we walk in and I'm like, okay. This is not okay, y'all. I was like, am I solution derivative?
She's there in the room?
Yeah, she's there in the room because we were in the backyard and then we come and she's in the living room. Yeah. And I was like, so obviously you guys can't be alone together. And like, I'm like making these things like this is not okay, but this is how we're going to solve this. Yep. And then she's like, Trey, did you tell her everything? And he's like, yeah. And she's like,
she seems a little calm.
Yeah, she
seems like, a little too calm.
Yeah, she's like, are you sure? And I was like, are there more? So she ends up calling her husband and he ends up coming over, watching the kids. And we go to the park to talk. And basically Trey lays it on me that we've been sleeping together for 2 months now. Yeah. But then them telling me like everything, I'm like, okay, are you guys in love? And basically at that point he was like, yes, but I still want to be with you.
Okay. Can we pause? Because I feel like this is a really common thing that it sounds crazy when you're living it, but like, Trey, help everyone understand what it's like when you love somebody or you think you love two people.
Yeah.
What is going on there? Because we all know the other side of it now. Y'all are in front of me right now with a new baby. Like, we all know where it ends. But what's going through your mind in that you feel like you really loved this person, but you also loved Holly?
I think, So I loved Holly and my life with Holly, and then I probably said like 2 times, like after sex with Jasmine, like with the rush and everything, and she's like, "I love you," and I'm like, I love you too. But it really wasn't like solidified, like, do I really love her? And so I don't remember saying like, I love both of you. But in a way, I did deeply, deeply care about her.
Yeah, okay.
Right?
Like at what point was your like moment of like, oh, this was a huge mistake? Like I no longer, you know what I'm...
I think ultimately, I don't think I was fully understanding how big of a mistake it was at that point.
Yeah. Because you still cared maybe some.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, and I felt super bad that I'm like leaving this girl out to dry. Now she has no husband. I'm like, I don't know where you're going to go. You're going to have to figure it out. Right. And I'm like, I did this to her. I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm a terrible person. But then I think Holly left that night to go spend the night at your sister's house or your mom's house or something like that.
I took the kids and I left to my parents.
Your parents' house, right? And I was like, this is definitely like, I need to either rise up and do something because Satan's trying to take me down. And I know this. And so I think when Holly came back is when the pain started setting in. She went to sleep in our bed. Right?
Sure. Yeah.
Of course. So I would lay, when she was sleeping in one of the kids' beds, I would just lay behind her and just hold her. And she would cry nonstop.
So the girl's gone. She's long gone.
Long gone.
Now it's about you chose,
exactly.
Trey. You chose.
I chose.
You chose Holly.
I'm staying home here.
Yeah.
With Holly.
Okay.
Like through and through.
And
love Holly.
now you're about to walk through hell.
Yeah.
Yep.
And so like for 3 days, I think I got like 3 hours of sleep because it was just nonstop tears. And then, I mean, even at one point, like you didn't want to even like.
No, I got suicidal. Like I didn't want to live. I was like, I can't handle this soul wrenching betrayal. Like I couldn't handle it at all from both of them. But going back through all that, I remember the same night, and I want to share this because I just think it was, I don't know, it was so cool, of like God really showing up and like being there for me even from the beginning, because when we get back to the house after the picnic, not picnic, but being at the park and sitting at the picnic table,
right?
I'm like bawling my eyes out. And my oldest, who's about 3 years old now, Roman, he is like, Mommy, what's wrong? And he's just like holding me. And he's like, Mommy, don't cry. It's okay. Like Jesus is holding you. And I'm like, okay. And he's like, Mommy, it's okay. He's kissing the top of your head right now. And so Roman, I feel like has Trey's gift too. And also when you're young, you just, the veil is so much thinner for them. And so they see things. So it was cool for me. And I needed that moment to know like, God is like, I know that this is hard, but I'm going to pick you up and I'm going to carry you. Because that's what I felt like throughout that whole, there's parts where it was dark, but I'm like, okay, if God's holding me right now, I'm about to walk through hell and back. And that's really what happened. But I would always keep going back to 2 things. One, God holding me. And then the next one is the day after, I was like, Mom, like, can you just take my kids? I just need to like go to the church and I need to figure things out. So I'm just bawling and listening. And then they have praise and worship. So I'm just worshiping God. And I remember I was asking God, like, God, please let me leave. Like, I don't want to be in this marriage.
Leave him.
Like, I want to leave.
Yeah, you wanted to.
And he said, you can. He goes, but if you stay, you will not, if you leave, you will not see my miracles. And so he's like, if you leave, you won't see the marriage that I promised you. And that was like really hard to like set in, like, what do I want? Do I want to walk through fire?
You had permission.
Yes. Or do I want to go? Because I had both. So I really had to like sit with that and like, what do I want? And I still loved him. That was the hard part. I wish I was like, oh, I hate you. Get out of my life.
You.
Bye.
Yeah.
We already had a bad marriage as it was.
Right, but you didn't.
But we didn't. We didn't. I was like, we have sex regularly. How is this possible? I was like, I make sure that you're taken care of, like, at my best of my abilities. And like, I thought we were good. We connect on so many different levels. Like, how is this possible?
Yep.
So I still love this guy. And I'm like, crap.
Clearly now 2 more babies.
Yes. And so I choose to stay because I was like, okay, God, like, I know you are faithful to your promises. And I've always prayed for you and asked like to have a great marriage. Like I want a true, authentic relationship with my husband.
Yep.
And, you know, God does answer prayers. Maybe not the way that you think it's going to happen.
Never. If only he would.
But he definitely has answered
but you had
prayer,
a promise.
But yes, I had a promise. And that's what carried me through.
So you took a moment to really know, I don't have to stay. And this is my choice. I'm not bound by my religious doctrine. I'm not bound by doctrine. I'm not bound by my church. I'm not bound by, I am open to any choice I want to make, and this is what I choose. And you chose to stay. Yes. Can I ask you something?
Yes.
What did Trey do post the affair to contribute to you feeling comfortable to stay?
He is very solution oriented as well. So he very took charge and like full responsibility of his actions and was like, hey, I'm going to go to, what is this place called that you went? It's like a men's group for affair and porn.
It's called Pure Desire Ministries.
Oh, yeah, I'm familiar. Yeah.
So
you did that all on your own.
Yeah.
She didn't have to demand that you go get. And can we just side note this for men and women that just want to go run amok and don't want to take responsibility? And she didn't have to, because I think sometimes I do see this in couples, especially with the men. This is a compliment to you, Trey. This is a compliment. That the woman has to literally sign them up. for stuff.
Yeah.
They have to threaten divorce if they don't go and do this. They have to, like I've had so many precious women in my life who are like, my husband will come into the meeting and play a part and he'll throw out the material on his way. Just that, and there are many reasons why we do those kind of things. But you took responsibility for your own life. Am I hearing that right?
Yeah, and I think that's the first step.
Yes.
That was one of two.
She didn't have to baby you into purity.
Yes.
She didn't have to baby you into being well.
Yeah.
Of course she contributed.
Yes.
But you saw what you had done.
Yes.
You took responsibility for it, and then you went to go and try and make amends.
Exactly.
I just want to make that a real point.
Yes. And I think that's one of two things, because I think that there's some personalities out there that's like, okay, I did wrong, and then I'm just going to, I'm going to read this book and go to this class, and then I'm going to be well.
Yep.
And then, hey, baby, look what I did. I checked the boxes. I'm good.
Yep.
But I wanted to do that and make sure that she saw that I was wanting to get well, but also wanted to actually get well.
Get well.
Right. And I think that goes, I think she saw that because I wanted to get out of porn, even into our marriage. I need to get out of porn and I want to get well inside as well. And so then I'm like, okay, I remember this. We were at my friend's house because our best friends, we just told them, they're like, you guys want to talk a little bit? And so I'd go talk to my friend and he was just like, and after talking for hours, he's like, but Trey, what's going on inside your soul?
Yeah.
And this comes to a very superficial, don't look down inside.
Yeah.
And
He's
I'm
seen
like,
beyond your thing.
Yeah. And I'm like, what are you talking about?
Because this is what Holly's been trying to get to the whole marriage is your soul.
Yes.
She's been trying to break that wall down.
And he's like, what's going on inside your soul? And that's when I would sleep on that. God just kept on urging me you really need to figure out what's going on inside your soul. And then I actually added another mentor to the list. Ultimately, I'm like, I look back and I'm like, I was just trying to do too much, and it wasn't fair to my other mentor because I'm like, all right, I'm just checking boxes. I'm sitting with you, and then we weren't really I wasn't being fair to him being really deep because I'm like, I already told him this story. Now I have to tell you, and I'm like, okay, so.
But I think the beautiful part of that chaos is that you were desperate to get well.
Very much so.
You were so desperate to get well, you overloaded yourself with mentors.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I think that's what a lot of people don't do. It's like what you said, if I just take this one session, then I'll be better. And you, as it's adorable in retrospect, that you went nuts on help.
Yeah.
And mentorship, so much so that you couldn't keep emoting to everybody because there were too many people.
I was getting burnt out. I did have.
You were getting burnt out on helping yourself because, but it's really amazing because that's what I feel like so many men don't do. It's just well, fine. If I'll go, if you make me, or I'll go, and you went overboard on it.
So, but I want to go back to I was doing the work, but then it was what was inside my soul?
Yeah.
And so my
there's the things you're doing, but then there's something inside.
How is it changing? Yeah. What is changing? Am I seeing the change? Am I feeling the change? Right?
How?
So my mentor was saying, well, what is God telling you? I'm like, well, when I read his Bible, I feel like the Bible's telling me this. And he's like, you need to be hearing God. Yeah. And he's like, come to my car. So we go out to his car and he turns on music. He goes, just be quiet, be still, and just say, God, I am your servant. And I am listening, and just close your eyes and listen. He's a Messianic Jew, so he puts on his Jewish music with symbols and stuff like that. I'm like, okay, this is kind of weird.
This is so awkward. This is so perfectly God though, to invade a moment like this where there's
But I'm sitting there.
Fiddler on the Roof going on in the background, and you're having a total spiritual experience.
So I'm sitting there, and I just start thoughts just start coming to your mind, and then I start seeing this kind of play before me, like a vision, and you're like, am I doing this?
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, I see Egypt, and I'm like, oh, look at the pyramids, that's cool, and I'm like, oh, the pyramid's getting smaller, and I'm like, I'm on a camel, and I'm leaving Egypt. And then I'm like, okay. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm at the tail end of all the Jews' exodus, leaving Egypt. And then I'm like, and then Moses parts the sea. And I'm like, this is kind of weird. But I'm like, okay, God, is this you? I don't know. And then I'm like, man, everyone is walking faster than me. And I'm like, what is
on
going
the Exodus?
On the Exodus.
Okay, yeah.
And I'm like, I know the Philistines are not the Philistines. The Egyptians are coming, right? And I'm like, okay. And I'm like, why am I walking so slow, God? He's like, what's on your back, Trey? It's just this huge leech on my back. And he's like, I'm going to walk you through on how to remove that. And so I'm like,
could you even put a name to it?
Not at the time.
Okay.
So then my mentor's like, you need to have these conversations with God as often as you can. Right? This is like, you're doing good work to figure out what's going on mentally, but now this is where it's going to, because I told him about like, I don't know what's going on inside my soul. You're like, this is what's going to show you what's on inside your soul.
Yeah.
And it was at that point that I would go revisit. And it was a black box at first. I'd walk in and I'm like bumping into things inside my own house. Like that's literally what it was. Yeah. And then I find a couch and I sit down and I start having these conversations. And I was like, and things started lighting up. Yeah. That transformed me. And it's not like, oh, okay, I did this, and this. Like I don't know. I just was taking one step at a time, and I feel like I was able to really start understand who Trey was, and through all those things, that's where I started.
Who Holly
finding my
always
mask.
wanted all along, but couldn't get.
Exactly.
Because he didn't even know.
Because he didn't know. Did you see him doing this work, Holly? Could you
not
tell that he was like?
I could see by his actions. Yeah. As far as like, he went every day to the Desired Ministry thing, or was once a week.
Well, I went once a week, but then I had like another mentor another day of the week, and another mentor another day of the week.
But you saw him doing it.
I saw him doing it.
So as a wife who has been through sexual betrayal, what does that like do for you to not have to like walk him? Like, did it start? And so now I want to get into like, how does someone recover? Because as much as you like, you're watching him do the work, but you're also devastated still. What does recovery look like? What does rebuilding trust look like?
So
for the person who has been
the first one is
betrayed.
Accepting responsibility yourself.
Okay.
Because I can't put it all on him, because I definitely had my role to play. I was very focused on my work. And I was not focusing on my family. So there was a huge gap that my family needed a mother, and I was not there. And my husband also needed a wife that was more present. Like I was present maybe like 2 hours of the day type of deal to like give him sex and like cuddle and like go to bed. But he needed
so can
more.
I pause you? Because sex, this is like, again, where we can reverse some roles. Like to you, like we're having great sex. I'm here. I'm available. What were you not getting, Trey?
Oh, I was completely happy.
You were. So there was no deficit to you.
Yeah.
In your mind, there was no deficit. I'm not just talking sex.
You know? It was like...
Okay, but there wasn't like some big thing where you didn't even really feel like Holly loved work more than you. No. That wasn't even there.
I wouldn't say. I would say like we're grinding this out. Like
okay, we're in tough times.
Yeah, we're in tough times. Like we're gonna get through this together.
Yeah.
But it wasn't like I'm left alone.
Okay, so that was never even there.
But I did feel lonely. Okay. You know? But I knew that was
And was that due to time?
Yes. I think it was
time?
It was due to like, I don't know if this
emotional connection. What is it?
I couldn't emotionally connect anyways. So
totally. So you weren't worried about that. Yeah. Okay, that's you weren't looking for that.
It was like human connection, because like I literally go out with my friends and I'm like, hey guys, what are you doing? I was good to be around adults, you know?
Okay. Yeah. So a friend, kind of like the friend she had always been to.
Yeah, and I never.
Yeah, it wasn't so much about the sex or the whatever, which was always good.
Yeah.
It was just the friendship,
the connections.
Yeah, okay. Not even emotionally. Like you didn't need her to ask, like, how are you, babe? Like, tell me your deepest, darkest things. Yeah. You just wanted her present to maybe play.
Yeah.
Okay.
And like be with the kids and like help with the house, because
it was just like, I wouldn't say it was like, oh my gosh, this was the one thing that was lacking. It was just kind of like,
so you didn't really feel that way. Okay, this is so good, you guys. Man, this is so good. Okay, so Holly, you're saying you felt like number one is taking responsibility. Yes. You didn't feel like you were doing enough.
I didn't feel like I was present enough. Like, okay, I wasn't at the house enough.
Yep.
And clearly, like,
the
whole
and then if she was there,
house
she was doing something else.
Yep.
And when I was working, so like I wasn't being the mom I needed to be.
Yep.
And I also wasn't being a helpmate. Now maybe I think I would say I was a wife, but I wasn't like a help, like a teammate to you.
Yeah.
I was in my own way, but like when it comes into like the home type of deal, I was like, oh, this is your realm. But really, it shouldn't be like, this is your realm. This should be like us together type of thing. When I'm home, I should help as much as I can.
Which is really beautiful because you guys are in the same realm professionally now.
Yes.
And at home, which is like really sweet because Trey, I saw on the Insta stories the other day, Trey was like working the front desk.
Yes.
And you were, so that's like a really cool, like secular thing. It's like now, like you're together, working together professionally and like.
But I still do 99% of the dishes.
That's true. I don't like dishes.
As you should. She's got work to do on this face. Every time you're doing dishes, just think she's blessing Jamie's sunspots.
Well, that will make the dishes go by way easier now.
Okay, I love this though, Holly. Okay, so taking responsibility ourselves.
Yes.
Well, at the same time, and what's the, I don't know the answer to this. I'm asking you as somebody who's been through it. What's the balance between taking responsibility and being like, oh, I could have done better here. And at the same time being like, but I didn't betray the covenant.
Yeah.
I think
does that make sense?
That goes into like my second thing. And I'll get to that in a second. But onto the first one of like responsibility, not just of like, what can I do better, but also like, everything happens for a reason. Yeah. And what am I supposed to learn right now? Why did this come up in my world? Obviously, I let it happen or I projected out something. Why? I don't know why it's happening. And I'm not saying it's like God's orchestra. It could be, but like, why is this right? Why am I walking through this? What do I have to learn? Because I want to learn it so I don't have to walk through it again. You know, like.
That's what I always say. I'm like, I want to pass my test now. Because I don't want to take it 10 years from now.
I don't want to keep doing it again.
So good, Holly.
So
you really went introspective then.
Yes. Just like he did, I did as well. But what's crazy is we didn't talk about our introspective thing. This is just me also spending time with God and figuring out what's going on type of deal. Yeah. He was my therapist. He's the best. He is. And then the second would be my actions. So like faith. God kept telling me, if you stay, like you will see the marriage that you want to have. And so I have a tattoo that says like trust and obey. And I got it like a couple months after because I just felt like if I trusted God and obeyed him, like I will be where I'm supposed to be, where he wants me to be, which is good and for my best. But what faith looks like is I can't just be like, oh, I want to have a good marriage. I want to have a good marriage. God, help me to have a good marriage. I have to walk it through. Yeah. So I have to actually walk out my faith. Yes.
With God.
Yes.
Oh, man.
So I can't just pray.
So real.
I actually have to I have to work myself. Yes.
This is so good. Yeah.
Yeah. Because I can't because God does answer prayers, but he does it through your actions. You know, he's not going to just plop in one day. 100%. Oh, you have a perfect
Sprinkle
husband.
Us with purity and faithfulness and peacefulness and all of this stuff. If only we just had an angel to sprinkle us.
Yes. Yeah. Just kind of like going back to like Trey as a young boy praying, God, please take away porn. Please take away porn. Well, he never did the steps to like go get help. You know, it was just like, oh, God, I'm just going to pray and ask for you and only like you're going to answer my prayer. But God answers prayers through people too.
Yes.
So
most of the time, I would say.
Yes, most of the time, the people are his hands.
Yep.
So Trey really just needed a mentor and needed like a class, you know, to figure out like what's going on within him.
Oh, I remember those classes. Oh.
There were some hard ones. They were good though.
Were they?
For you. There was one.
Like intense.
Obviously it starts off light, but then it's like, all right, let's get to the root cause and stuff. And they have a very good program. But there was this one where it's like, where it identifies your trauma. And I guess I had to pick my worst one or something like that. But I wrote a letter. I wrote what happened and then my forgiveness letter. And it was to my mom. And I'm literally reading this letter.
To your mom?
To my group.
Oh, to
and
your
I
group.
am bawling.
Man.
I am cried. Oh. And everyone's like, thanks for sharing, Trey. Oh my God.
But it was real in you. That was the soul work being done.
Yeah.
That was the soul work being done.
Yeah.
Oh man, that's so good. But it's so uncomfortable for those of us who don't like to feel that way.
I know. It really is.
It's our only way through.
But it really made me just, I felt you felt lighter afterwards.
Oh, I'm sure. I can't imagine. Yeah.
There's a piece to it for sure. Afterwards.
I really like what you guys are saying because you're both, which I didn't know. I know a lot of the story, but I didn't know this part of it is that you both really went inward.
Mm-hmm.
Because I feel like the temptation would be, I want every single detail. We are going to talk every night for 4 hours. Mm-hmm. We are going to figure out what's wrong with you. We are going to figure, and you guys really like went for it on yourselves.
Well,
it was
I'm sure
after Holly asked 100 times, why?
She should have asked 1,000 times.
Yes.
That's her every right.
Yes.
But you really did, like in the moment, of course, we're going to be crazy and not be crazy. We're going to feel like so many questions and so many things, and we are going to need all the details. But then you, Holly, really, you settled into like, okay, I'm going to trust and obey. I'm going to listen to what God, he's always been there. He was there in the backyard then.
There was like two sides. There was
okay, tell me the two sides.
I want to know like all the details.
Yep.
And retrospect, I always tell my clients who have
you give
gone through the same thing. And as an esthetician, you become a therapist.
100%.
And so clients that are comfortable with, saying like, hey, I'm going through this thing. And I'm like, well, hey, sister, I've been there too. And I'll share my story because stories are powerful.
Yes.
But I'm like, the one thing I wish it's so hard. It's a toss up. I really wish I didn't ask all the details.
Yeah. Okay. This
because
is good.
what happens is yes, I know all the things and he's not keeping any secrets from me. But now Satan gets to use all those stories and all the things that I know, all these details and puts it back on me. So I have this constant movie playing in my head of what that looked like. And, or, hey, you guys did this position. Well, like, did I do it better? Or like also like in the bed or, body wise. And it's just like, Satan definitely uses it as a tool to destroy you.
Yeah.
And
to trigger.
And yes.
And to take us back where we are no longer.
Yes. Because if I didn't know these stories, I can't like be triggered again or whatever. Yeah. But that's why,
I think that's really that's really insightful for anybody walking through it is like, or it maybe even just pause on the details so that they don't enter your brain in a time of like high trauma. So that.
Because I still like, it's crazy. Like I feel like I'm in a much better place today. Yeah. Like I can say now, like, I am so thankful for the affair because it brought a marriage that I prayed for my whole life. And it didn't come the best way that I'd want it to come, but it still came. And I would do it again if I got to have the marriage I have today.
Wow.
Yeah, I know that's huge to say, but I really do believe that. But still, like knowing that I feel that way, I'll be going to my car at Target. I'm just like, blah, blah, and all of a sudden an image will just like pop in my head of like that whole like scenario. I'm like, oh, I don't want to feel that way. Why is this? And I know that's totally Satan just putting images in my head because I'm going to my car at Target. I'm fine. And then all of a sudden, bloop, you have this scene and you're like, oh, no. I'm like, so I used to give into it and be like, oh, like I would be so sad and it would affect the rest of my day. But now I'm like, not today, Satan. And I'm like, not today. I was like, I have too much stuff to do.
Like, you really do have too much to do.
I was like, I can't do it.
My soft spots are waiting.
Yes.
No, Holly, that's so
but now I can push it away. But I wish I didn't have to push it away.
Fully. You wish you almost didn't even have it in your head.
Yes.
Okay, this is really helpful.
I think also though, we sat down with Mauricio and his wife really just a few days after the affair, and that was one of the things that they said, like, Holly, like, just don't ask for the details.
Yeah.
And like, just give Trey permission right now to not give you those details because you're going to want to know, but just don't do it.
So I didn't listen though.
And she didn't. And I'm like,
I don't know many people that would, honestly. That's our instinct is just,
I want to know everything.
Because you've been betrayed, so you want truth. Because truth helps, but I think it's really good for anybody walking through it is like, it could help, but maybe like put that down the road. Talk those through in ways that aren't going to like, so that you don't have to be walking out of Target and then all of a sudden.
We're picking up pieces right now.
Yeah.
We don't need to smash the other pieces that are on the ground.
Totally. Yep.
But it's hard. I mean, obviously I can only imagine from the other side.
Yep.
It's so hard.
So Trey, how did you see Holly doing the work? Like, what was your observation of her through this? Like, what would you say from your side? How did you see her get to where she is now?
In the beginning, I think it was, you spent a lot of time with Whitney Bates, I believe, right? And so it was like having that friend to talk you through
a safe
things.
place.
Yeah, that you could talk
she's
to.
a great safe place.
And so I felt like I was very thankful for her in our lives at that time. And then I don't think there was ever like, oh, that was a turning point. It was just we kept on little by little, just like picking up pieces. Like, okay, this is what we're doing, right? Or would you say? What else would you say?
I think the biggest thing I want to hear for women, and something that of hearing other affairs and hearing men talk about, like, oh, she always hangs this over my head, like she can never move on, like she's just constantly bringing it back.
Yep.
And I came to a thing in myself, like, if I really wanted to move on, I have to fully forgive him and not hang it over his head, because I don't want this to keep creeping back into our marriage. I want to move forward, not keep going backwards.
Right.
Because if
it doesn't
keep
deserve any more space.
Being like, well, you cheated on me and you did this, like it's gonna.
Yeah, I think
it doesn't help us progress and to have a great marriage that we want to have.
Yeah,
Holly's was fantastic at that. Once we kind of like picked up the pieces, we're gonna move on from now. She's never like brought up, if I ever did something wrong down the road, well, you cheated on me last year, 5 years ago, whatever it was. Holly's been fantastic, and I've never been in another relationship, but but from what I hear, which is like what Holly said,
I see a lot of
common.
Relationships, and that's a real Christian.
Yeah,
no, for real. Like that's what really being full of Christ and the fruits of the Holy Spirit is, because nobody can just do that. Nobody can just dismiss it and not hang it over your head, or, you miss one thing and, well, you did this, so I deserve this. And for you to sit here, it's like so touching for you to sit here and be like, she never has done that. And that's not just grit, although she's got some serious BA grit. That's the fruits of the Holy Spirit in her life.
Amen.
And her faith, which was your second point. And
another point that God gave to me, and I was like, and a lot of times it's not fair. It's like he told me, like, I'm calling you to love him, like true love, like how I love him. I want you to love him, like flaws and everything, because you've always told him, take off your mask and I'll still love you. And I'm like, well,
he called you on the carpet.
Yeah, he did.
He was like,
he did. And I think what's so beautiful today is because I have just keep on loving this man's soul, and sometimes I'm like, why can't he love me the way I love him? Like, why do I have to be the one to just give up my rights and be hurt and still love?
Yeah.
And through me doing that, and God honestly really helped me love him more. He knows what true love is, because he didn't know what love was before, because it was based off of perfection and your actions versus just seeing that person, the raw, true person that they are, and still loving them.
Yeah, that's true.
So I love that I can give that to you and show you love.
Thank you,
you guys are so it's really sweet. It's so good. Do you feel that, Trey, from her?
God has given me a gift through her, because she embodies full love completely, and I never knew what that looked like. I thought what love was. And I thought love was everything but unconditional, right?
Yeah.
And the
one thing it should be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then she was like, oh, my love is now unconditional. I felt
when you were the least perfect
of
POS. All time.
I am the mud of the mud right now.
Least perfect.
Yes.
And there she comes.
And then she still loves me. And I'm like, how? I didn't understand it. And
are you starting to more now?
Oh man, I really am.
Yeah.
And now, like, Holly always asks me in like dating and in our early years of marriage, do I have your whole heart? And I'm like, yeah, I got my whole heart.
Sure. What you knew of it at the time.
Exactly. And she's called me into a whole nother level of love, depth, whole heart love, because I have seen her love. So it was.
This is really powerful.
It was, it was just like God was then working in my heart to using her cup that runneth over to fill what I understood as love.
Yeah.
So it was definitely a two-way street. We both really, really grew from that experience.
Yeah. thank you so much for this.
Yeah.
Like, this is one of my favorites that I've ever recorded, for real.
Really?
Oh, I really appreciate like the rawness and the backstageness of you guys, which I knew I would get. I knew I would get it with you. But I'm just so grateful. I think it's going to help so many people and so many people to come that are going to walk through it, because we're in this life and we're humans and we're navigating so many things, and we have walls up and we have like, you know, there's just so many things, and God is so faithful. I'm encouraged just hearing it. I love what you said, Trey, about, and I think this is so true, because most people, I feel like, myself included, look for moments of like, oh, this is where it all turned around. Right? Like, I'm always looking for like, now is it just over? Are we just better? Am I just whole? Am I just healed? Am I just healthy? Am I just like, does my skin just skip? But if Holly's taught me anything, it's exactly what you said. It's like, it's this little by little. It's this little by little, like looking at ourselves, loving, doing the work, and just listening to God, which you both, that's like a resounding thing with both of you, which is really sweet. Is like, you both just listen to God so much through it. And there's this part of my favorite book. It's called A Long Obedience in the Same Direction. And he talks about, it's by Eugene Peterson, and he talks about how like a lot of Christians want to make monuments, but Christians should only ever be represented by footprints, because footprints always show like where we've been before, but we're moving on. And if there's one thing about you guys, and like what you said with the little by little, is like, like you don't need a monument. You've got 1,000 little footprints, right? Good, bad, ugly, glorious, beautiful, all of it, like all of the messiness of human life. And I'm just like, honor you guys for loving each other, seeing each other through it. And are we going to get a 7th baby?
No.
No, 6. No, 6. Are we going to get a 6th baby?
We're done at 5.
Okay.
I forgot. I do have a 3rd one.
Oh,
so
please.
I'm sorry.
No, please tell me all of them. You can go to 10 if you want.
Okay. Don't have expectations. So like, as a young girl, we watched Disney, right?
Oh, here we go. I know where you're going with this.
I know.
No,
Disney
talk about it. Preach, woman.
Oh my God, my mission to destroy Disney. No, I'm just kidding. Not only because, I mean, I love Disney. I love the memories that it creates. However, as a young girl, you grow up watching, you're going to one day get this fairy tale like life that you have this beautiful prince who treats you like a princess and is so perfect, and you're gonna grow up and live this beautiful life. But when that doesn't happen, and you're shattered. Like, wait a minute,
right?
This isn't what
culture taught me.
This is not supposed to happen.
This is what Mickey Mouse told me would happen.
Yes, you're like, you're not perfect. I can't love you anymore, right? Because this isn't my life, and then you hate your life because your life isn't perfect. That's not a great expectation for life, and it's when you realize that, you're upset, right? But
and then we blame either God or like it gets so
or our spouse, like, you're not perfect. But I think if we just throw the expectation of perfectionism out the window, you're gonna live such a better, happy life, and the life that really God intended you to live, versus always constantly thinking your life's supposed to be something else.
And it's not one that we land perfectly in. It's one that we cultivate and we grow and we go through all the stuff that y'all have been through. And then you land yourself at 70 years old with grandchildren being like, oh, and this is what it was.
You really can create the world that you want to live in. Manifestation, it's like, I believe prayer is a form of manifestation, because you're constantly thinking about it and you're praying, you're asking God for
faith to it,
all
of it.
And then you walk it out, right? And then it will come to you, that life that you want to live. But it doesn't have to be perfect. So give grace for people when they're not perfect. I love that what Satan used to he was meaning to destroy our lives and our legacy. But what Satan used for bad, God used it as our platform for good. And if you just allow him to use your life and use your experiences, not only will it bless you, but also will bless others. And that's why we're on today, is because I want to tell people, yes, it can happen. And it can happen in
we
worse
don't live
ways.
in a Disney movie.
Yes, we don't live in a Disney movie. If you're struggling through an affair, It does happen. It happens a lot. And I'm sad that it's not talked about enough because so many people don't hear the other side, that it can be happy. Like Trey and I have the best marriage that like I could have ever dreamed of, plus some. And I'm just so thankful for our marriage today. Like I look at people and I'm like, I wish, you could experience what I have to experience, but I also walk through a ton to experience it. And a lot of times people don't know all the ton that we walk through. They just think that we have this great marriage.
They just see you on the dance floor. And it's a perfect couple. Yes. They don't know. They're going to know now.
They're going to know now.
Thank God for you guys being willing to tell it.
Yes.
So,
thank you.
Yes. So I just want to let people know there is hope. And so I love that. I'm hoping that today will give people hope. And so instead of Satan destroying, that God is using a beautiful platform that you've given us to tell people it can be hope and it can be a great life if you choose it.
Yeah, please share it. Share it all.
We will. We're going to share it all.
We're going to put you on blast.
Okay, y'all. There's all the tea.
Yeah.